I would like to call the school board meeting for Tuesday, June 18th, 2024, for the Des Moines Public Schools to order. Ms. Rios, could you please take the roll?
Certainly. Ms. Alonso Diaz,
Here.
Ms. Campos,
Present.
Mr. Dix, Ms. Knox,
Here.
Ms. Martorano, Mr. Mayberry Mace,
Here.
Ms. Norris.
Here.
We have quorum.
The first item of business is approval of the agenda. May I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda?
Alonso so moved.
Mayberry May, second.
We have a motion by Alonso and a second by Mayberry Mays. Board members, please cast your votes. The vote is approved 5-0. The next item on our agenda is our district recognitions. Superintendent Roberts, are there any recognitions today?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have a few recommendations that I'm excited to share. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here. As we continue to bring forth recognitions at school board meetings where we celebrate the successes and accomplishments both of students and staff in and out of the classrooms, tonight I would like to share with you just a few examples. We probably all heard the expression that it takes a village to raise a child. At Des Moines Public Schools, we are fortunate to have a community of volunteers, many partners who are part of this village. There are several organizations who support us in our work of educating almost 31,000 students. And we celebrate those individuals every opportunity that we have a chance to do so. Every once in a while, life decisions will allow us to have some of those individuals leave us and transition to other pastures. Sadly, tonight we bid farewell to one of those important members of our DMPS village, someone who has worked tirelessly to build and grow the Des Moines Public Schools Foundation in support of our students, our teachers, and our schools. At this moment, I would like to turn this evening's recognition over to Board Member Jenna Knox, who is the representative on the Des Moines Public Schools Foundation, to share more about tonight's special guest.
Thank you, Superintendent Roberts. I have the honor and privilege of recognizing Kristen Arnold, who has been our chair of the Des Moines Public Schools Foundation and is moving to Texas with her family to make great impacts there. Many of you likely have heard of the Des Moines Public Schools One Run now, which began in 2019 and has raised over $100,000 for our schools, dollars directly going into our schools. But what many of you may not know is that that idea actually started with one person. And I think it started with Kristen Arnold. And I think she is such an example of one of my favorite quotes by Margaret Mead, and now I don't have it right here in front of me. But it's basically, never underestimate the power of a small group of committed citizens to change the world. They are indeed the only things who ever have. And so Kristen dreamed up this idea of a one run. And for those of you that don't know exactly how it works, the foundation goes out and engages corporate sponsors and individuals to make donations, and those donations are directly given to the schools that have the largest amount of representation at the event. So it's not something that we're directly asking our families or our teachers to contribute to. We're going out and asking our community to believe in Des Moines Public Schools, and then those who show up financially benefit from it. I believe it was about $26 a student or an individual who showed up for each school last year. $26 an individual went back directly into the school buildings for those schools to use as they wish and need. And so I just want to take a moment and recognize not only the great impact and legacy of Kristen Arnold for having our first ever district-wide fundraiser, but also just give her a minute and say thank you so much for bringing your talents here and for creating something that we all want to do, which is a legacy. It will live on beyond you. So a moment of appreciation for Kristen. And I have...
Sweet. Oh my God. Thank you.
I don't know if you want to share a few
Well, I want to
words.
take a picture. You two get together.
Thanks, Jackie. Thank you all so much for being a part of this. This couldn't have happened without people allowing it to happen. And it started at the school board level saying we're willing to see what this looks like. It happened at the foundation board level saying we're willing to try. And it could have been shut down right away. So everybody that was willing to try, I'm super grateful for. And my counterpart, Jaslyn Fitz, is here. I couldn't have done it without her either. If you are in the school level working, you've heard from Jaslyn because she is bringing all the schools together and she's still here working with One Run. So she's keeping it going. There are more people keeping it going. And it means it's so much that we have a district-wide fundraiser. And I'm so grateful that each of you believe in this so that we can keep these things going, because education to me is the most important thing that we can be doing together for all of our kids collectively for our future. So thank you for this invitation to be here. I'm so excited for you guys and what's next.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you, Kristen. Just a few orders, if I may, Madam Chair and Board. We began the month of June on a high in terms of sports and athletics, with our Hoover Huskies making their first appearance in the state championship finals for boys, Iowa high school boys soccer. While we ended the tournament as the runner-up, we are incredibly proud of this team, a team that has a lot of young athletes who are returning next year. So Iowa competitors, watch out. Congratulations to Roosevelt High School's Matt Reams on being named as the Boys Soccer Coach of the Year by Iowa High School Soccer Coaches Association. Coach Reams led the Rough Riders from a 6-7 record last year. What a turnaround to an 11-4 record this year and a spot in the sub-state finals. Both semifinals for Roosevelt and Hoover was played, of course, at our new MediaCom Stadium. It's getting its use. We are excited about that. And since then, 3 of our boys soccer players were also named to the Des Moines Register's All-State team. What a recognition. Congratulations to Hoover Huskies, Amisi Bita, Javier Flores, along with Roosevelt High School's Ibrahim Lunganga. So we are so proud of them. And then finally, in terms of athletics, we are off to a great start with a new partner, the Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota Vikings came to the MediaCom Stadium and they hosted a Vikings football camp early this month, where they not only house our aspiring football players, who are boys football players, but also had flag football offering for girls.
Woohoo.
Both camps were well attended, I know. Girl power, love it. And then finally, in terms of athletics, the Lincoln Rails girls softball played the first ever in the state of Iowa sanctioned high school softball game at a world-famous Field of Dreams. Not only did they make a little bit of softball history here, but they also won convincingly 5-1. I believe that they have a proud principal and some of the teachers and staff hiding somewhere in here. I can imagine how
there.
excited they are. Go Rails. And finally, I have to share this, and this is certainly a moment of pride, not only for Des Moines Public Schools, but for the city of Des Moines and the state of Iowa. This week, we are hosting the National Speech and Debate Tournament, where we welcome more than 6,700 students from not only all over the country, but from around the world. There are teams from, I think, Taiwan, I believe China, and there is a team from Ghana. As in, I'm leaving East High School today, where I visited them. A couple of the teams, for some reason, saw superintendent written on my suit and decided they wanted to take pictures with me. That was a fun time. But more importantly, having had the opportunity to speak in on some of those debates, we are proud of our students. Incredibly talented, intellectually gifted. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens at the end of this tournament. Madam Chair, that ends this evening's recognitions.
Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is our monitoring reports. The first report that we are going to monitor is Goal 1, and Ms. Alonso will be taking us through the conversation today. So, Ms. Alonso, it's all yours.
Thank you. Perfect. We're going to be having our conversation about Goal 1 and interim Goal 1A. Our goal is the percent of all fourth.
We're table talking, sorry.
Oh, no.
Ms. Alonso, Dr. Roberts and I would like to make a friendly amendment, which is to invite some of the representatives from schools to come up and speak prior to starting the monitoring report. Is that correct?
Thank you, Madam Chair. That is accurate. And so we have
Thank you.
pivoted towards a system whereby while we continue to share and monitor our goals and guardrails with the public because of our commitment to transparency, what we realize is that there are so many amazing individuals in our schools who are doing really, really outstanding work, the work that is tightly connected to our interim goals and guardrails. And just so that we can have some additional context that would sort of add value to the quantitative numbers that we tend to look at, we are honored to have a number of principals and teachers, some of whom probably flew back from Hawaii and Florida because they're on vacation. So we thank you. We are honored to have you here this evening to come up and provide a little bit of context relative to the goals that we're going to, and guardrails that we're going to monitor this evening. Yep. So with regards to goal 1, so we'll have our leaders come up and set it up for us. Thank you. Principal supervisors.
And if you want to also join me as we're introducing, if the two teams also want to walk up. Madam Chair, Superintendent Roberts, Board, it's a privilege to stand before you this evening. Greg Grills, Elementary Director, and behind me I also have Mike Lord and Barry Jones. Also representing Kelly Schofield, who's not with us this evening. But it's our privilege to turn over the mic to two special elementaries in Des Moines, one Stowe Elementary and then Walnut Street Elementary. Both are seeing great success when we think of these two board goals this evening that we're discussing. And we've got representation from some students that would like to share their voice, also a couple of staff members. So I'm going to turn it over to them and highlight their work that they're doing.
Hi, good evening. My name is Amy Lau, and I am the principal at Walnut Street School downtown Des Moines. It's just a few blocks from here on 10th and Walnut. I have a lot of people behind me that are here who, if we had enough room, would be standing with me because we do this work together. I just finished my 7th year as Walnut Street's principal in May, so thank you for the time for listening to me and our team celebrate our success. Walnut Street is an international baccalaureate school and has been one since 2012. We believe in the integrated approach, that curiosity is not a privilege, and it is our job to be inclusive, providing access for all. When we were presented with the new district curriculum in 2019, we decided to approach this challenge the only way we knew how to, as learners. The summer of 2019, our teachers and our instructional coaches spent time workshopping how to align district curriculum with our IB units of inquiry. Each year after, we took time to implement all the moving parts. This past school year, we were in year 2 of implementing everything. And when I say that, I mean IM, EL, SEL, all those acronyms with our IB philosophy. And guess what? It works. Our students are receiving rigorous grade-level instruction, and they feel like they belong. Each year, we have carefully constructed theories of action to guide our work. Self-efficacy, becoming data literate, planning at the PLC level, providing scaffolds, and maintaining the entire school year. We have delved into these theories as a learning community throughout the years together, and our result is that we met numerous board goals. I'm going to turn the mic over to Leslie Barnheiser-Sickink and Katie Briggs, and they're going to do the honors of sharing our data.
Thank you.
82% of our 4th grade students were proficient on ELA ISASP.
100% of our 4th grade Black males were proficient on ELA ISASP.
Would you please repeat that?
100% of our 4th grade Black males were proficient on ELA ISASP.
Thank you.
71% of our 4th grade students with IEPs, individual education plans, were proficient on ELA ISASP.
83% of our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students feel as though their teachers provide rigorous instruction, while at the same time, 79% feel as though they have good relationships with their teachers. Our panorama data went nothing but up, including a 10-point increase in our students' self-efficacy from fall to spring.
On the State Conditions for Learning survey, our adult-student relationships are 83% favorable, an increase of 18%.
69.6% of our second and third grade students were proficient on the Reading FastBridge CBM, an increase from 19.2% in the fall.
We feel pretty good. And if you look back here, these are not just classroom teachers, office manager, community schools coordinator, associates. Everybody who works in our building is part of our learning community. Next up, we have Libby Boma, who just finished teaching her fourth grade year with Journey Davis, who was in our class. So I'm going to invite them up.
Good evening. My name is Libby Boma, and I just finished my 10th year teaching at Walnut Street School. I am so proud to be a part of a community where we have consciously combined the pillars of our IB philosophy, social emotional learning with district curriculum, creating a cohesive educational experience that truly works for everyone. I have experience being an instructional strategist, co-teaching with a gen ed teacher. She's back there somewhere, and those roles being reversed. There is no doubt in my mind that 100% inclusion coupled with GLEAM and IB has helped our ISAF scores, our conditions for learning survey outcomes, and the overall love for our school from parents, teachers, and staff and students. This synergy not only enhances academic achievement, but also fosters a deep sense of global citizenship and personal growth among our learners, both students and staff. In closing, I want to express my gratitude to all who have contributed to this success. Our dedicated staff, supportive admin, engaged parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles, and of course, our incredible students. Together, we continue to uphold our commitment to excellence and innovation in education and the embodiment of urban education. Thank you. I would like to now introduce Journey Davis, who is one of my students in our fourth grade class.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Journey Davis. I am 10 years old and will be going into the 5th grade at Walnut Street School next year. Things I enjoy most are Sonic, playing video games with my cousin, and making new friends wherever I go. What I enjoy about Walnut Street School are learning about new things, playing with my friends during recess, and going on field trips. My favorite subject last year was gaining knowledge. What I learned last year in gaining knowledge was about the American Revolution from 1765 to 1783. The National Women's Suffrage Association in 1869, and when women were granted the right to vote in 1920. The learner profile I think I am best at showing is caring. I chose caring because I am my best self when I am kind to people. I am happiest when I am caring and people are kind to one another. My wishes for Walnut Street School are more opportunities for science projects, more field trips, and a half seconds for lunches when possible. In conclusion, I think Walnut Street School is a good school and my teachers are getting me prepared for middle school. I will be happy to graduate to middle school, but sad to leave elementary school behind. My teachers and principal, thank you.
He wrote that all by himself. All we did was send him a list of questions, and we trusted Journey to just do that, and that is thanks to all his teachers and his grandma.
Impressive.
So I'm almost done. We have found joy growing together as a staff implementing these changes. As a leadership team, we strive to change the behavior, the beliefs, and the being with our staff. Thank you, Des Moines Public Schools, for providing us a curriculum that includes grade-level instruction. We encourage the board to visit our school in the fall to see it in action. And now we're going to turn it over to Tiana from Stowe so they can have some celebrations too.
think before Stowe begins, I just want to be sure that you hear loud and clear from the board, congratulations and thanks for all of your hard work. It is really impressive and fun that we could be here to celebrate with you.
Hi, thank you so much for having me tonight. My name is Tiana Sambold. In May, I completed my 14th year in administration. My first year as principal at Stowe, and what I consider to be my most successful year as a leader in DMPS. Our data speaks for itself, so here come the celebrations. For Board Goal 1, the percent of all grade 4 students scoring proficient or advanced on the ISASP ELA assessment increased by 13.5% from the spring of 2023. That means we are exceeding our spring of 2024 and 2025 goals, and we missed our spring of 2026 goal by 1.3%. We were so close. Board Goal 1A, the percent of all grade 2-3 students meeting benchmark on FastBridge CBM reading increased by 6.8% from the spring of 2023, resulting in Stowe meeting our spring 2024 and 2025 goal. Board Goal 1B, the percentage of Black and Latinx students grades 2-3 meeting benchmark on the FastBridge CBM reading increased 15.1%, resulting in Stowe meeting and exceeding our spring of 2024, 25, and 26 goals. Finally, Board Goal 2C, the percent of Black and Latinx grade 5 students meeting benchmark on the FastBridge A reading increased by 12.6% from the spring of 2023, resulting in Team Stowe meeting our spring 2024, 25, and 26 goals. I know, look at them. These amazing accomplishments were made possible by the talented staff at Stowe, the gifted students, supportive community, and the laser-sharp focus on student achievement through research-based instructional strategies. In order to create such an intense focus, we need a guaranteed and viable Tier 1 curriculum, which we have in the EL reading and IM math curriculums, as well as a dynamic instructional framework. You know it is clean. By providing these foundational supports, the team at Stowe dramatically increased student achievement and student efficacy. To truly understand the excitement, I brought my team, and to speak about their achievements and student growth, we have Miss Sarah Ohms, a 5th grade teacher at Stowe.
We're not scared. Well, good evening, Dr. Roberts and fellow board members. As you just found out, my name is Sarah Ohms, and I am a 5th grade teacher at Stowe Elementary. The team at Stowe has much to celebrate from this past school year. There were so many steps that we took that led to that amazing student achievement that you just heard about. The first thing that we did was we met as grade level PLCs with our coaches for 2 hours each week to plan for our instruction. During this time, we were focused on the grade level instruction and making sure that all students were part of the learning. This meant ensuring that during our time, we looked at all the standards that were being addressed in both the IM lessons and the EL lessons. We would then unpack each lesson and to make sure that we are spending the majority of our instructional core time on those main standards. By ensuring that our instruction was at grade level, we saw a higher self-efficacy among our students, along with them taking greater pride in their work. We also believe that all our students could be provided grade level instruction, and that all students were able to meet this expectation. Through this, our students were supported by our strong will to plan effective lessons and be engaged in the learning alongside them. The team at Stowe is excited to continue our journey and see where we grow in the next coming year. Thank you.
All right, next I have Giovanni and Faze, and they told me that I could brag about their accomplishments this year before they came up. So Giovanni just finished 4th grade at Stowe. He's excited to share how his hard work culminated in scoring proficient in ISASP on the ELA assessment and advanced on his math assessment. Giovanni's younger brother, Faze, is about to share how his hard work helped him have the highest growth in his class on the A reading assessment and grow 55 words per minute on the CBM.
Hello, it is nice to meet you. My name is Giovanni Alexander. Next year, I will be in 5th grade. The thing I love about Stowe is the staff and peers that surround me. Everyone is nice and takes care of me. My favorite thing I learned about this year was the American Revolution. And in math, I learned how to add fractions. Some people said it was hard for them, but I helped them. Next year, I am excited to learn even more math, and I hope I have Miss Ohms for a teacher. Thank you for letting me speak with you.
Hi, my name is Faith Alexander. I'm going to 3rd grade at Stowe Elementary. My favorite thing is to bring home my math book because I can use the extra pages to color. I like to play with my friends. We play tag and hide and go seek. My favorite thing I learned this year it's literacy. I learned about fossils and pollinators. A fact about fossils is that they are in desert caves buried in the floor. Next year, I'm going to learn about multiplications and division. Shout out to my favorite teacher, Mrs. Dingman.
All right, go back by brother, okay? Got to move our step stool over here. Thank you so much for your support and encouragement. We know at Stowe we're not quite there yet, but with time, intentional focus on the board goals, and a commitment to continued learning of the curriculum and instructional framework, Team Stowe is confident we can meet the needs of the students and community we serve, and we encourage every one of you to come visit our school in the fall and see us in action. Thank you so much.
We just want to say congratulations to the Stowe team as well. That was really exciting to listen to. And I know we're going to get into our monitoring report. I think if we could just ask the leader from each of the schools, there's just one question that I'm going to ask, and then there's time for one additional question if a board member has it. So you can choose, okay? Here are the two options. Either what is the largest barrier to success that you'd want to share with us, or what is one thing you want the school board to know as it relates to this goal?
I think mindset is a barrier. And I think that with intentional planning, and when you think about big picture and not what's going to change tomorrow, but what's going to change maybe in a couple of weeks or a year's time, you're going to get some changes in beliefs. Therefore, the work will continue even if we're not there.
Great, thank you.
And I think that I would just want you to know we are working so hard. The team is working so hard. And nobody wants to see those results in student achievement more than our teams, but it takes time. We're helping the teachers learn. We're helping them get better at their profession. So just keep encouraging us. They're real tired at the end of the day. They just keep showing up and doing amazing work for their students.
Great, thank you. Board members, any other questions? Great. Great, thank you so much. Really
thanks.
appreciate it.
Madam Chair, if I may, I know that you all may leave before the meeting is over, but this is hands down one of the most inspiring meetings I have sat at during the first year of my tenure. And Journey, Faze, and Giovanni, I want you all to know that I'm incredibly proud of you. You warm my heart, and you've just inspired me to keep going.
Thank you so much. I have to tell you, it's pretty rare that Dr. Roberts is actually speechless. So, way to go. Okay, Ms. Alonso, with that, I'm going to turn it to you. Is that good? Yep.
Yeah, give me 1 second because I have.
Yeah, I know. We have some criers up here.
Oh my goodness, that was amazing. Thank you for coming tonight and truly inspiring. I think it just validates, right, all the work. And thank you to those of you that consistently show up for students. You do incredible work, and we're grateful that you're here. Okay. So we're going to have our conversation about Goal 1. Goal 1, the percent of all fourth grade students proficient on the ISSL assessment will increase from 52.7 in June 2022 to 67% in June 2026. Our interim goal 1A is the percentage of second to third grade students meeting benchmark on Fastbridge CBM reading will increase from 54.3% in June 2022 to 70% in June 2026. This report is not on track. First, we must agree that we are able to see what's being monitored, board, that we can see 3 previous reporting periods, that our superintendent's evaluation of performance is there, and also we must show supporting documentation that evidences the superintendent's evaluation via the tables provided. Do we agree that we see that?
Yes.
With that said, we will go into the data. We will be looking at the reality, our current reality, and we will start with our questions, who, what, and why. Who has the first question for our superintendent?
Dr. Roberts, on page 1, under the percent of grade 2, second and third grade students meeting benchmark on Fastbridge CBM reading, we're currently at 61%, which is not on track. What would you say we've learned since our last assessment? We've grown a little bit. What would you say has been a point of learning for us?
Yeah, thank you, Board Member Maturano. So certainly, when in conversations with teachers and leaders, we realize that our commitment to really shoring up our interventions has really yielded dividends. I know that while we are seeing that our students have improved from fall to spring and year over year, we still recognize that there's more work to be done. One thing that we've also learned is that the teachers who we have in place are the right teachers. The pedagogical strategies that they are implementing are the right strategies. What is important, though, is for us to continue to make sure that we are trying to find and create spaces for teachers to have more time to plan. We realize that that's an area where we can get better.
Just to follow up on page 3 to the comment you just made about finding more time, because that seems to be a theme. What will you choose to sacrifice or cut to identify the time you need? And how, or how are you making that decision to think about how to balance the learning needs?
Yeah, that's a decision that the district leadership team and I certainly want to be involved. That's a decision that we are certainly allowing for our school leaders and their teachers to make in-house. Because while we have some consistency across the board with our elementary schedules, there are some cultural aspects to each school that I believe school leaders will be better poised to make those decisions. And so once they're made, Madam Chair, I'm happy to come back to the board and to highlight, what are some of the pivots we've made, right, across the board with consistency to allow for more time. Unfortunately, time is of the essence, right? We only have but so much time in any school day, and our cadre of teachers are really committed to going above and beyond. And so we are reviewing our scheduling for teachers in the school year 24-25.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else?
I do have a question. So on page 2 of what is not going well, it states wide variance in classroom data within schools. What trends are you seeing that we feel that we need to do with it? Is that certain demographics, size of towns?
Yeah, excellent question, and I certainly appreciate where you were going there as well, Board Member Campos. So the variance that we've seen in classrooms in terms of outcomes really has a strong connection or correlation to teacher quality. We're not seeing any variance, though, in terms of teacher tenure. And so that question has come up in our conversations. And so what we are seeing is that regardless of whether or not teachers are veterans or they're more neophyte or much newer, we're seeing some of the same performance, right? Really steady growth, and in some instances, we're seeing some gaps. We are certainly seeing some variance in terms of students who are new to the district, and in schools where students are coming to us that are new to the district, we recognize very early and value the fact that parents are sending us their best, but some of those students are coming to us at deficits that really requires teachers to really delve into their repertoire of pedagogical strategies to get those students caught up. And so those are some of the variances that we're seeing. And there's a commitment on the part of our district leaders and principals to make sure that we are employing more consistency with regards to strategies that are happening in some of our higher performance schools or classrooms, right? What we do not want to have is this perpetuation of sort of siloed performance, high performances, where we're small enough to be able to replicate some of the strong practices to make sure that we mitigate the variance.
Thank you.
I think my question aligns with Ms. Campos. We've heard from Walnut Street School as well as Stowe Elementary School, and why is it working there and not as a system?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. And so we were intentional, right, to make sure that we highlighted today, we could have brought a number of different schools here. What we highlighted for you today are schools that academically are at very different ends of the spectrum or on this continuum. And the results that you heard from many of our leaders and teachers and students today are happening in a lot of our schools, a number of our schools. However, when we look at the aggregate and look at the district-wide performance, we certainly have to get better at making sure we're scaling that performance. So yes, there's a lot of celebrations in terms of achievement and growth across many of our 38 elementary schools, but there are also opportunities for us to grow and get better.
So why is it not working at those particular locations or in those areas that are not bringing the entire system along?
Yeah, it's multifaceted. So, we were talking about one, meeting students where they are in terms of their base performance and moving them along the continuum of growth. Additionally, we have this variation in terms of teacher performance, right? We have a cadre of teachers who, while our teachers doing an amazing job, we have opportunities to grow, coach, and develop some of our teachers. Additionally, there's certainly some variance in terms of the school leaders who are really invested in instructional leadership, who are committed to moving steadily towards or even exceeding that 70% of their time, where they're observing teachers, providing them with bite-sized feedback and targeted and differentiated coaching. Then we have some of our leaders who we know they are areas where they can grow and get better. Additionally, those of us at the district office, we are constantly trying to make sure that we are reviewing and refining how we are supporting, coaching, and developing our leaders and teachers. So a big part of the gaps that we're still seeing rests with my office, right? And so we are not sitting in this place where we want to point fingers. I know that there's still a lot of work that has to occur coming from my office and that of our leadership around teaching and learning.
On page 2, under spring to spring data, you indicated that ELL students meeting benchmark increased 3.4% from spring 23 to spring 24. To what do you specifically attribute such growth?
Yeah, so there are a multitude of reasons we can share with this. The CBM, of course, right, a curriculum-based measurement, is where students are assessed based on not just the curriculum, but skills that they were taught. And so certainly with much more of a commitment to looking at, and in this case, we're looking at students, whether it's there are two different blocks, if you may, the skill blocks and the all block for students who are a part of the EL curriculum. The younger students, of course, who are having a more of a focus on the skill block, we're seeing much more of an investment from a lot of our teachers around how they are continuously getting better with implementation of the skill block. In general, what I want to share with the board is we are somewhere between, I think, years 3 and 5 of implementation of our curriculum as well. And while we have definitely struggled with implementation previously, we are getting a lot of traction. And this data, while it's only 3.4%, it tells us that we're going in the right direction. And it really speaks to the fact that our teachers are continuously improving. The support that they're receiving from their school leaders certainly is becoming much more targeted, hence the reason we're seeing improvement in our outcomes. And there's a focus as well on historically marginalized populations to make sure that we are truly approaching the work through the lens of equity, giving them much more than they've been given in the past so that they can get better and improve around their academic outcomes.
I have a question, and it's more so connected to the comment that Principal Amy Lowe from Walnut made towards the end about the biggest barrier. What she referenced was mindset. I'm curious if you can talk a little bit about the mindset of the students, or excuse me, the mindset of the teachers in wanting to do something like this. I also acknowledge that there were several comments around this isn't something that can be done overnight. It takes time. So just thoughts around mindset of the teachers and the expectations of how quickly something like this can move.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Dr. Mirabay Mays. I think it really speaks to the fact that, one of the discussions we've had at this board table before is while we have a really healthy appetite to move the needle very quickly on student achievement and outcomes, we know that when we want to implement a new curriculum, when we look at a new framework, in this case GLEAM, it's going to take us some time to truly be able to scale the work that we're doing. Principal Lau's sentiment around the mindset shift really connects strongly to this dichotomous relationship between technical versus adaptive right, existence, whether it's teaching or leadership. So technically, there's no doubt in my mind that 100% of our teachers are willing to develop the technical skills in order to be able to deliver the pedagogical strategies. Similarly, for leaders, technically we're solid. The adaptive part of the work is the mindset that she referenced, right? There's every single person, and I want to certainly stay away from what is happening in buildings because I believe that teachers and leaders are doing really great work. At the district office and my team, my executive team, do we truly believe that 100% of our students can achieve at high levels? And that belief is going to manifest itself in how we are providing support to principals and how they're in turn providing support to teachers. And so it's a work that has to continue, the kind of work that has to continue around the changing of mindsets. One of the benefits of having GLEAM, that framework that really highlights the competencies and attributes of cultural responsivity, is going to help us to change those mindsets, particularly around the last 3 letters in the acronym of GLEAM, right? Looking at meaningful, affirming, and engaging. Those are the competencies that would highlight or change people's mindsets who, based on their own lived experiences, maybe did not have a belief that the students who were standing in front of them or the teachers who were teaching the students are capable of. And that's the heavy lift. And I think one thing that stands out to me is the fact that the professional learning and the tiered support from the central office, the board and district's investment in our teachers being developed professionally, 150 adults just spent a week in Denver, Colorado. Those are the sort of exposures that will shift that mindset to get us to the place where we truly believe, right, that our students are capable of, and we truly believe that our teachers have what it takes to deliver.
Dr. Roberts, I hear you talking a lot about the additional resources that we've invested in to bring in GLEAM, using, on page 2, you talk about using the Wilson instruction. We've discussed that in the past when we've been looking at the monitoring reports. We talk about the new curriculum that we're in year 3 of. But if you really look at the 3-year trend, at the end of the day, it's a downward trend, and that's called out on page 2. To what do you attribute this year-over-year downward trend to?
Yeah, it means that while we are seeing progress in some areas, that we still have a lot of work to do around how we are refining 2 key areas, right? Or I say 3 key areas. 1, how we are truly delivering on grade level instruction and moving students along, right? So that's where GLEAM comes in, the first 2 letters in the acronym. The second is, are we truly investing enough time in building capacity in our school leaders with a relentless focus on what does high quality instruction and instruction leadership look like? And then thirdly, again, it comes back to the work that has to happen at the central office and my team under my leadership. While it's a 3-year trend, and certainly this is year 1 for me, I still want to take ownership of the fact that we have to refine our practices and become much more sophisticated on what we're delivering by way of support, coaching, and development of principals and teachers, teachers, and our support staff. I believe that our children are coming to us regardless of their level of preparation or where they're performing. It is incumbent upon the adults who are serving them, certainly from my team, that we figure out very quickly through our constant review of data or analysis of trends to make sure that we are truly exposing our students to the appropriate amount of intervention, the right kind of intervention. And so I'm taking ownership of this downward trend, but also want to celebrate, right, the areas where we're seeing growth that ultimately we want to be able to scale.
What are the limitations to bringing your team along as you've just described?
Yeah, I've certainly over-indexed on what appears sometimes to be a very simplistic sort of sharing that I've posited, and that is, while we have a solid group of adults in place, is getting the right people in the right seats, right? Making sure that those individuals who are tasked and charged with leading our instructional program are truly not only equipped to do so, but are doing so in a manner that aligns with strong and proven pedagogical and instructional practices. Going into the next school year, the limitation the single limitation that I see will have to be mindset, right? It is clear to us that there's a level of confidence that our parents and community members, and even our school teams have in us to make sure that we're supporting them. And if we're not able to do so, then it is my commitment to those individuals who are part of my team that we may need to probably revisit how we're showing up. And that may require us to make some changes and adjustments, right? We cannot afford to continue to see the downward trend. Faze and Giovanni and Journey and their peers are dependent on us, particularly those of us who are at the district office in teaching and learning and student support services.
Before I ask my question, Mr. Dix, do you have any questions that you'd like to ask?
I don't, thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Just to follow up on the limitations question, Dr. Roberts, there's been a lot of discussion about quality, investing in school leaders, making sure that, best practices are shared. And so, but I'm also trying to understand quality versus quantity. And maybe by quantity, I mean just the number, the need for more human beings working in the classroom and directly working with students. How do you, how do you balance those two, right? Because there is a significant amount of money being put into professional development. And I know they're different pots of money, but how are you working with building leaders to make sure that while they have a lot of latitude to make their own decisions, that they are making decisions that ensure that bodies are supporting achievement of these goals whenever possible?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's one of the reasons, and I appreciate this question. It really builds on the question that was posed earlier by board members with regards to why we're seeing the variance. And one of the reasons we're seeing the variance is as a result of the residue that we are seeing from a system that I think for some time may have operated as a system with several schools versus as a school system, right? And so school leaders, the variance you're seeing is because, again, we have not had the kind of consistency that we need to have around how principals are being guided, supported, and what is expected of them to deliver. You heard from one of our principals earlier who passionately talked about her investment and commitment to the outcomes that we can see from our IB program. Well, if you go across the district, you are going to hear principals who are leading IB schools that do not value IB programs. And so that variance that we've seen, and to your question about how are we going to address this, our leadership in teaching and learning have been talking a lot about the importance of having a well-vetted and scope and sequence around targeted and differentiated professional development for all of our principals. And the trickle-down effect will be in place, right? We also expect that the board's approval of resources, and the board has been incredibly generous and committed to making sure that the resources are really intended to meet the needs of providing professional development for teachers, that we are going to see much more consistency in how we're delivering in that. And again, I want to harken back to what happened last week in Denver, Colorado. That level of investment and commitment from teachers during the summer speaks volumes about the fact that it bodes well for what is to come.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, we will move on to our how questions. I will go ahead and do the first one. On page two, Dr. Roberts, under what's not going well. First grade students not meeting or meeting benchmarks is stagnant. How will we change that?
Yeah, that's an excellent one. In some instances, when we've constantly reviewed this data, this one has been somewhat of a head scratcher, but we ought to look at trends. I know one of the key areas that we need to probably visit is what is happening in our preschool and kindergarten. And while we know that there's not a lot of control around how many students are able to register, enroll in, and attend preschool and kindergarten, I think that's something that we have to look at. But what I know that is absolutely going to be one of our next steps is to make sure that we are providing or even inundating, if you may, our first grade teachers across the district with more resources around interventions, targeted interventions. Because having this data remain stagnant is unacceptable.
Thank you.
I'm trying to frame this question with my board member hat on and not my educator hat on. When I look at some of these percentages and I hear you say targeted interventions, my educator hat sees a conflict. And what's coming to mind is we can't intervene our way out of a core concern. And at these levels of percentage, this feels like a core concern. So to hear that targeted interventions is going to be a next step, can you help me understand your thinking around that and reframe my level of understanding with these numbers and what I understand intervention to be for core and for tier 1 versus tier 2?
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to clarify, I think, where I'm going. I think at no point did I say or will I ever suggest that we can sort of focus on interventions in order for us to meet the needs of students, right? It has to be a multi-pronged approach, right? While we are going to make sure that we are constantly improving the quality of pedagogical strategies being delivered to students in terms of core curriculum, we also have to recognize that if we are seeing an outcome such as stagnation of a particular data point, and that's a trend, then we have to focus on intervention. Additionally, I also want to share that our commitment to focusing on sort of the core around reviewing and refining the curriculum that we have, both EL and IM, making sure that we are committed to supporting teachers around two key parts of our curriculum implementation, that it is pacing versus mastery, to make sure that students are able to get exactly what they need. So when they're going to take these assessments, they're being assessed on what was taught. And of utmost importance, right, a critical part of the work that we have to do in order for us to scale outcomes to students, I believe, while it's not a panacea, is improving the core around instructional leadership. We know that the research tells us, looking at the research coming out of New Leaders many years ago, that a single principal who is focused on instructional leadership can impact as much as 25% increase of student academic outcomes, which is why I'm constantly over-indexing on we have to provide capacity building opportunities for principals. So I really appreciate that question and observation, Ms. Matarana, because again, don't want to give the impression at all that we want to intervene our way out of low academic performance. It has to be a multi-pronged approach. So thank you for highlighting that for us. Yeah, much appreciated.
Any other how questions? Any other how questions?
How can the board help?
Yeah, I think there are two things that comes to mind, right? One, and the board, you are already doing this, and it's very rare for many people to be able to acknowledge that, and that is your commitment to saying yes to our requests for resources that we know will meet the needs of students, but also increase capacity in our teachers and leaders. So thank you. And then secondly, you know, I truly know that I speak on behalf of the entire executive cabinet and all the district leaders by sharing that this process of constantly monitoring and reviewing and revising how we're looking at our achievement, our outcomes, targeted versus actual, it's a critical practice, right? It really inspires us to continue to make sure that we are a school leadership team that has a relentless focus on data-driven decisions, but also we are committed to making sure that we are improving outcomes to students. And so on behalf of the district's leadership team, we thank you and value your governance, but also appreciate the fact that you're still constantly asking how you can be helpful. That means a lot to us.
Anyone else? Madam Chair, back to you for acceptance.
Thanks, Ms. Alonso. I appreciate it. Thank you for monitoring as well. I think, Board, we are now going to move to, it's separate. Yeah, okay, sorry. We're going to now move forward and decide whether we, as a board, will accept the monitoring report. Board members may have a motion and a second for item C1.
I move to accept monitoring report goal 1, C1.
Alonso, second.
We have a motion by Martirano and a second by Alonso. Is there any discussion, or does anyone have any questions? Board members, please cast your votes. Mr. Dix? Might have dropped off by now. The vote is approved 6-0. We are now going to turn to our second monitoring report, and thank you, Ms. Martirano, who has agreed to facilitate the board discussion regarding this monitoring report.
Our second monitoring report tonight is for Goal 2. The percent of Black male fourth grade students proficient on the ISASP ELA assessment will increase from 29.5% in June 2022 to 67% in June 2026. We are monitoring interim Goal 2A, the percent of second and third grade Black male students meeting benchmark on FastBridge CBM reading will increase from 44.6% in June of 2023 to 70% in June of 2026. The evaluation from the superintendent is not on track. Board members, are you in agreement that this report clearly states the goal? It shows 3 reporting periods. The superintendent's interpretation is available, and there is evidence and a plan in the report.
Yes.
Yes, so we will begin our monitoring questions to better understand the current performance and the current state of affairs when it comes to Goal 2, interim Goal 2A, by asking who, what, and why questions or past focus questions before moving into our present focus. I will open the table for questions. Dr. Roberts, on page 1, under the interim Goal 2A percentages, our actual data has increased to 45.8%. To what do you attribute, while not on target, what do you attribute the growth that we are seeing here?
Yeah, thank you, Board Member Martirano. So certainly there is more of a targeted focus on I would utilize what is one of the sort of overused terms in education, and that is differentiated instruction, right? Where instead of sort of the general delivery in any classroom, there is more intentionality to make sure that we are valuing, I would say, not only the learning styles, but the cultural and lived experiences of our students. And so clearly the way we are doing that is within the framework of GLEAM. And so one of the reasons that we've attributed to the significant increases that we're seeing is the cohort data really indicates that we're seeing a positive impact on student learning in grades 3 and 4 as well as 2 and 3.
Thank you.
Page 2. Can you hear me? Page 2, again, with what's not going well in our first graders or first grade.
what is the amount of time that you think will take for us to be able to see growth in this area?
Ms. Alonso, can we hold that one off to our future facing conversation for
Sí.
next steps? Thank you.
Yes, yes. Should we move on to our?
So, Dr. Roberts, I mean, this is just so interesting because it's great to see an upward 3-year trend line, right? As opposed to our prior report, which was a downward 3-year trend line. So what, here I had my questions up here and then I touched the screen. So, I mean, what have you learned from this upward 3-year trend line that we can apply not only to the student group, but also all in a larger context for the more system-wide approach to addressing literacy?
Thank you. So there are a number of, not necessarily new, but there are a number of initiatives that we've continuously looked at and refined in terms of our practices. Certainly want to talk about our commitment to addressing the variance that we've seen, and that variance in terms of implementation, right? We are not seeing as much of the practice where every single school has a very different approach to how they are utilizing resources. In the case of ELA, let's say resources that includes the science of reading, Wilson reading, how we are implementing, in the case of math, our IM math curriculum, right? So we are seeing much more consistency. Additionally, we are truly creating professional learning communities with teachers who are either grade levels, sharing the same grade level band or content areas, not just within schools, but across schools. So the practice of our GLEAM inventories have allowed us to have teachers and leaders, as well as some instructional coaches, visiting a number of different schools where they can see, observe, and bring back some of the practices that are considered either excellent or meeting a lot of success back to a number of schools. And so we are seeing much more of a shared practice around our pedagogical delivery. And I want to attribute some of it to that, right? Quite frankly, it's our teachers and school leaders with support from district office personnel. It really is going to take a concerted effort, one that we haven't seen in a little while, but we're seeing continuous improvement in that this year, especially during the latter part of the year.
Go ahead. Dr. Roberts, under what is not going well? You mentioned planning time and elementary teachers not having adequate time. What are the limitations to providing adequate time?
Time. Our limitations is really around how to make sure that we are building in that time. And similar to building on the question that I think the board has asked earlier, and that is, why is it happening in some schools? And so we have some principals who are being incredibly creative and innovative in terms of how they're utilizing the time. And there's a commitment from our principal supervisors to have much more of a shared practice where those principals are going to share with their peers how are they creating space, right, to ensure that teachers have the time. Additionally, I think an important conversation to have, and we've started this and it has been brought to us by our partners in the DMEA, and that is, how can we truly figure out how to make the necessary shifts in our schedules so that teachers can have that professional development or job-embedded PD time? And in our union negotiations, I know, with our monthly meetings, which is not a lot of time, but it's more than enough for us to be thoughtful about how are we utilizing that little over an hour monthly, right? Are we spending that time on agenda items that can be discussed via an email, or are we coming to recognize that every single moment and opportunity that we have to look at providing capacity building opportunities for teachers that are related directly to student outcomes, that we have to use the time wisely. This is still, I would say, a part of the mixture around how we are going to continue to review and refine the creation of the right amount of time so that teachers can have that job embedded opportunity to be professionally developed. Because we're not going to get more time in the school day. We just have to be creative. There are other places where there's a lot of creativity and innovation that goes into the use of time, and we have to figure that out.
Dr. Roberts, how will those leaders, specifically principals, be held accountable to evolving their practices? What is the feedback mechanism in place for principals to receive feedback?
Yeah, and so we will have a multi-tiered approach to that. And so while, again, we believe that every single principal understands that there is accountability and that shared accountability amongst them as well as myself and my team. But our approach will include, I would say, three things. One, a continued commitment to our GLEAM inventories, where we're utilizing the GLEAM framework and the tools that we've acquired. Secondly, it's a practice that we started this year around instructional rounds, and we still have an opportunity to refine and make it better. And that instructional round practice should see three different tiers or levels of instructional rounds. There's a superintendent rounds where superintendent and members of the executive cabinet, depending on what we are intending to observe and look for, will spend an inordinate amount of time in schools with school leaders. The second set of rounds will be led by our principal supervisors and individuals who are leading them, in this case, the chief academic officer. And again, those rounds will really be grounded in the observation of teaching or learning and how to refine and improve those practices. And then the third tier of instructional rounds really aligns to what we started this year with that 70% of time that principals ought to spend on the instructional core, and that is the principals rounds, right? The expectation is that principals will conduct instructional rounds weekly. And the goal of rounds, again, while we recognize, Madam Chair and Board, that everyone has to be held accountable, I want us to over-index more on coaching and capacity building as opposed to the evaluative approach. So there are three tiers of rounds. Superintendent rounds, where myself and other members of the executive cabinet are modeling that we value the instructional core, right? That is, what curriculum are we implementing, what teachers are teaching, and how students are learning. Then the second layer of rounds is principal supervisors, right? All of whom, right, spend an inordinate amount of time in schools. Now we want to be more thoughtful about how that time is being utilized. And then the third is where principals are truly exemplifying what it means to be an instructional leader, where they are spending time in classrooms providing teachers with targeted and bite-sized feedback to improve their instructional practices.
Thank you, Dr. Roberts. Chair Norris, I just want to note that that was a future-facing question for next time, but good. Sorry, I didn't catch it before he answered.
Madam Chair.
On page 2, Dr. Roberts.
We are a learning organization, as you can tell.
Under what's going well, 96% of our second and third grade Black male students who scored or who were screened in the fall and scored at or above benchmark remained at or above benchmark in the spring. Can you tell us what's currently happening with, that is definitely something to celebrate, replicate what's happening there. Can you?
It is. The team, again, having done our review, realized that the tiered supports that have been put in place, right, to support not only all of our students, but with specificity around students who historically have been marginalized and not necessarily given access to high quality instruction, the tiered supports are working, and we're seeing the effect of that. Again, we are in no way, shape, or form utilizing or referencing our GLEAM framework as a panacea, but it's the utilization of our GLEAM framework in combination with, I think, the movement that we're seeing in our teachers and leaders to become much more culturally responsive and culturally aware as they are delivering meaningful, affirming, and engaging instruction to students. And so we're seeing that, and anecdotally, when we walk into classrooms, we're seeing sort of the intentionality of teachers, right? One pedagogical strategy that I'll give is where there's a use of what is called equity sticks. And that is if you have 25 students in a classroom, while historically in some places you are likely to see teachers based on their own biases are only engaging or calling upon a certain student or certain students, now to make sure that it's much more equitable, teachers will either do one of two things, right? Spend a lot more time calling on students whose, based on their identity or performance, have been historically marginalized, or two, the utilization of sticks with the names of every student that they are pulling randomly to make sure that you're hearing the voices of many more of our students. The second pedagogical strategy that we are seeing improvements in and getting a lot of traction on, and a significant number of our elementary schools have actually highlighted this as a problem of practice, and that is to make sure that in every single class, teachers are intentionally allowing students to carry the cognitive load or the cognitive lift. And what that means is, instead of teachers teaching and delivering instruction, and because they are the adults who are qualified, they're not only delivering the instruction, but they're attempting sometimes without enough wait time to answer questions. We are seeing teachers are really exemplifying solid wait time and allowing students to grapple with content so that they can carry the cognitive load or cognitive lift. And those are just a few of the observations we've made thus far.
It was a joy to hear our young scholar talk about how he helped his fellow student with math and that level 4 work. So thank you for highlighting that. Board colleagues, what other questions do you have to understand the current reality of Goal 2 interim Goal 2A? If not, we can move to future-facing questions. Ms. Alonso, I can turn it over to you regarding your page 2 first grade question of how long.
Yes. I actually asked that question in a what form, but it was a futuristic question, so, yeah.
It was disguised.
Good catch, yes. So, page 2, Dr. Roberts, with our first graders, how long do you think it'll take before we're able to see some growth?
Yeah, Board Member Alonso Diaz, while I don't want to necessarily commit to time, what I'll tell you is that we are approaching this with a sense of urgency, because clearly this is data that has some implications from a trend analysis, right? We are seeing that it has, first grade students meeting benchmark has remained stagnant, at least for the last 2 or 3 years. And the entire team and I, and our chief academic officer, we are committed to making sure that we are reviewing and unpacking every aspect of this data point to figure out where we need to make sure that we are refining our practices. And so my commitment to the board is, as we get into the next school year, we are absolutely going to move the needle on this student outcome. We have to be able to reach our youngest amongst our students and change the trajectory for them. So I commit to coming back to the board with an update about the movement that we're making and traction we're getting.
Board Member Martirano, correct me if I am out of order. I'm trying to figure out how to frame my question within the framework we're operating in.
She will.
She'll tell you.
Yeah, I'm sure. Because I'm like, who, what, and why, and I think this is more of a when question, which might be out of scope. But it's related to the trend. I know in previous board meetings, when the data team stood up here and chatted about many of these data points will see an exponential growth, which is, looking at it now from the amount of data that's here, I can see it start to trend in that way. I'd be interested in hearing if you, too, believe that it is trending in the way that you were expecting at the growth rate that you were expecting.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Mays. My response is two-part. One, I'm encouraged by some of the trends that we're seeing, but quite frankly, I'm tempering my expectation because we are only in year 1 of this framework that clearly has been a game changer for us. But what I want to offer, and certainly being cautious about overpromising and under-delivering, is the fact that going into year 2, we should not only continue to see the same trend, but we should see the positive outcomes in more schools. And so that will get us to the point of really scaling our increases, right? And I know board members asked earlier, why are we seeing pockets of excellence as opposed to a system-wide movement around positive outcomes? But I believe with the utmost confidence that based on some of the trends we're seeing now, that we are moving in the right direction, not necessarily at a pace which I would like to see us moving because time was of the essence.
Thank you.
And Dr. Mayberry Mays, I would just offer that because you asked about order, it's not so much, there's definitely an order to understanding the current state versus future state. So that's definitely, we want to understand the current state before moving to the future state, but also understanding action that has been taken during those questions of understanding current state, what got us to where we're at right now, and then what actions can we expect moving forward based on the data that's provided to us. So
Thank you.
if that helps clarify. Dr. Roberts, what, if any, changes can we expect to show up in future budget amendments regarding this particular item?
Thank you, Board Member Martorano. So certainly, I know that there's a commitment from the team and I to come to the board in our July meeting to furnish you with much more detailed analysis around how we are looking at costing resource allocation. And those resources include some personal resources. I know that we are going to see an increase in the position of an interventionist across the board. But now that we have new leadership in our teaching and learning team, certainly want to make sure that we also allow for Dr. Lundin to provide some insights and input around what else should we look at in terms of resource allocation that will get us a lot of positive and aggressive traction with regards to student outcomes. And so you should see our ask of the board when we come to the meeting in July.
With evidence that those strategies are working.
Yeah, thank you. That pressure was just pivoted right to Dr. Lundin. So yes, our new Chief Academic Officer.
Board colleagues, any additional questions?
I did have another question.
Yes, there is one more.
Yes, one more. And this is focused on the future, and it's a what question. After hearing Journey, or was it Giovanni, I believe it was Giovanni, reference some of the things that were being done in the school. Well, actually, all three of the students. I'm curious as to what is being done from the qualitative information that's being provided from these students' experiences to help better inform the pedagogical instruction, the instructional design moving forward for some of these goals.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Mayberry Mays, for that question. I want to highlight probably three things, right? One, we are seeing school leaders and teachers, and this is something certainly that is so pleasing to be able to see, where students are seeing a reflection of who they are and their identities plastered throughout and appearing not only in classrooms, but throughout the building. Additionally, again, and this is one that so often we overlook, but in some of our practices, there's a commitment to cultural responsivity that transcends teaching and learning. Our Director of Food and Nutrition, for example, Amanda Miller, and I know that we've shared this before, is constantly refining and looking at how can we offer a much wider variety, right, of meals and nutritional items that truly meets the needs of students from a variety of cultures, and so they're feeling that sense of belonging. And then finally, really having conversations about the lived experiences of our students that goes beyond, in the case of our Latinx students, it's not just when we're teaching House on Mango Street, or not only for the case of our Black students when we're teaching during Black History Month, but we are certainly seeing an increase in the adults in our buildings where they are highlighting opportunities and having conversations that make students feel valued. When I heard, for example, from one of our principals that there's an 82% sense of belonging that students are feeling in our schools, that speaks volumes. That should be at 100%, but 82% certainly is relatively significant. And so those are some of the observations that we're making. Going into the next school year, we've had conversations about this, and I want to make this commitment publicly around resource reallocation. I expect that in every elementary school, we are going to see not only leveled texts, but I want to make sure that we have the books that are in our classroom and school libraries that are representative of the variety or the cultural differences of all of our students. I want our students and young people, we know that research tells us that when they see themselves in the instructional material, they're likely to be much more engaged, thereby seeing the kind of positive outcomes we expect. And so that's some of the work that we have to definitely commit to doing, and we will get done.
Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion to accept item C2, monitoring report goal 2 for black male students in early literacy.
Thank you, Ms. Martirano. Thank you for leading. We have a motion by Ms. Martirano. Do we have a second to approve item C2?
Second, Mayberry Mays.
We have a motion by Martirano, a second by Mayberry Mays. Is there any discussion or does anyone have any questions? Board members, please cast your votes. The vote is approved 6-0. Next on the agenda is the public forum, followed by the consent and regular agenda. Ms. Campos, would you share the guidance?
We provide the speakers of forum an opportunity to address the board up to 3 minutes regarding items that are not on the board agenda. We also allow any persons in the opportunity to speak to the board for up to 5 minutes following the presentation of an agenda item. If anybody wishes to speak during the portion of the business meeting, please email rosa.rios@dmschools.org. The same speaking protocols applies to all individuals who wish to address the board. Speakers will be called individually, and we ask that they state their name and their address prior to providing comments. Students and minors do not have to provide their address. Guests of the board are encouraged to speak to matters relating to the programs, services, and operations of Des Moines Public Schools. Please remember that Iowa law prohibits us from discussing specific employees or their job performances. We ask that all speakers to avoid references to personalities and other characters attacks, as those type of comments do not contribute to the purpose of which this public forum exists. The use of inappropriate languages will not be tolerated. And individuals choosing to do so will be gavelled out of order and asked to excuse themselves from the premises or escorted out by security. As a reminder, the board will not engage in discussion with public forum speakers, as it is our obligation to discuss only matters posted in the public agenda for the sake of transparency and opportunities afforded to all community stakeholders. Matters required attention will receive appropriate staff and/or board follow-up at a time after the meeting. Thanks for your participation. We appreciate your feedback and input. Rosie, do we have any speakers?
We do not.
We now will move to the consent agenda. As a reminder to the board and public, the board will not engage in discussion or deliberation with a speaker regarding comments made to agenda items. Discussion and deliberation will remain among board members at the board table with speakers' comments informing the board's discussion, deliberation, and determinations as deemed necessary. Ms. Rios, do we have any speakers?
No speakers tonight.
Ms. Campos, I believe you have the consent motion.
I do. I would like to make a motion to adapt the balance of the closing agenda, moving to items for discussion. It is E4, the parent square.
So, Ms. Campos, why don't we get a second for the consent motion? And then when we get to discussion, is that the point where are we making a motion now?
You can do either. You can either go ahead and make a motion and then make an amendment to the motion to adopt the balance, if another board member wants to entertain that motion.
Okay, so, sorry, I'm just reading this, and I just want to make sure we're on the same page. So what you would like to do is to pull E4, correct, from the consent agenda item?
Yes.
So we can have a discussion about it. So I am going to make a suggestion that we pull off E4, and I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda minus E4 at this point.
So just read it.
So do we have a motion? Yep, yes, please.
Okay. I move the board to approve the consent items in accordance with the recommendation actions for each item on the consent agenda, including bills previously authorized, certified, and approved for payment by the board secretary in the amount of $5,055,962.36, and the procurement card transactions for the amount of $957,067.14.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
I have a second.
We have a motion by Campos and a second by Knox. Is there any discussion, or does anyone have any questions?
Point of clarification, was that amount that was just made and seconded with the inclusion of item E?
That's an excellent question.
E4?
No, it is not. Those bills paid, so the bills have been already paid.
Okay.
In the consent motion, and this is something for approval.
So item E4, or excuse me, E, which item that we're?
It has not been paid.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the clarifying question. Any other questions? Board members, please cast your votes. The consent items are approved 6-0. We will now move to discuss item E4 on the consent agenda item. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Roberts for discussion, or do we need to make a motion? May I have a motion to discuss E4?
Knox, so moved.
We have a motion by Knox and a second by Alonso. Is there any discussion, or does anyone have any questions?
I do. The reason why I wanted this discussion on it, previously, we, as a district, we've used a different programs called Snap Connect. And just looking through this new product, I just want to see what differs in the two products, because as a parent, myself, I mean, it feels like we're getting new apps every couple or every year, practically doing the same thing. So I just want to see what's a little bit more in depth of what this new app does. And is there a price saving cost? Why are we looking to do something different?
Thank you, Board Member Campos, for the question. Certainly, yes. Our commitment to make sure that we are, again, to your point, condensing down the number of applications that our parents will be exposed to as we attempt to improve communication with them is one of the reasons we are going to go with Parent Square. Additionally, I believe that Parent Square will offer us the ability to have communication, two-way communication in multiple languages. And our goal is that ultimately it will get us to offer that communication in languages that meets the needs of 100% of our parents. In terms of the cost savings, I do not have that information about whether or not there's a cost savings at this time, but I know that what we have anchored this pivot in is our commitment to make sure that, one, parents don't have to go beyond 2 or 3 clicks in order to be able to communicate with us. And then secondly, to make sure that we are truly meeting them in terms of their home language needs so that we can improve communication. But if it pleases the board, I'm happy to make sure that we can bring this back to the board with individuals on the team who are much closer to this pivot. Because I do not have encyclopedic knowledge at this time about the Parent Square app. Yep.
I do think it would be helpful to understand with such a quick pivot. I mean, I think it's only been 2 years since we've been fully onboarded. So I think just to.
And not every school is even fully onboarded.
Right. So I think maybe, a greater understanding, if this is the decision that's the board is, or that the district is recommending, that it's got longevity, it's been tested, and other apps have been looked at, so we don't find ourselves moving again in 2 years. And quite honestly, I think at the same time, how are activities being integrated into this? Because we still have a athletics activities, multiple apps issue as well. So just making sure that this is a holistic decision that is going to work for the benefit of students and parents.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Ms. Campos. Absolutely. We will definitely come back to the board so you have a thorough understanding of why we're making this pivot.
Thank you.
And also, I was unaware that we were not able to communicate in all the languages that our families speak currently with Snap Connect. I kind of thought that we had that. So any insight into sort of that lens and it added value for families would be helpful as well.
Thank you, Board Member Knox.
I am going to ask for a friendly amendment to amend this to table. So if a board member would like to table this until more information is received, I will entertain that motion.
Yes, I would like the motion to table this for more discussion.
So we have a motion by Campos. Do we have a second? We have a second by Alonso. All those in favor?
Or you can.
Yes, we can do voice vote. 5-1. The vote passes. And so Dr. Roberts will put that on the agenda for next meeting.
July 9th. That's correct, Madam Chair.
Now we move to our other discussion items. The first item is F1, committee updates. And I believe committee updates, this is going to be a conversation with Maria and Kim to talk about the retreat, and Skylar. Thank you.
Everyone has access to your calendar. We are trying to figure out some dates that would work for everyone to have our retreat. And we are looking for a period of 8 hours, Friday evening and Saturday. I think July was not an option, is that correct?
I think we should look at July again and confirm that
Should we?
that's not, unless Kim or you have information.
If we can look.
Did you sent some dates, so. We had June dates and July dates in the poll that was sent out, and not everyone worked. I'm happy to revisit July if anyone's
I
calendars
think we
have
should
changed.
try July again and I just want to confirm that there's hard.
Did we hear from
no's.
Patrick? I did not.
We have his calendar.
I have his calendar.
Okay.
I do have one, can I ask one clarifying question? Dr. Roberts, we had spoken about the intersection with the strategic planning consultant and whether or not if at all they would be connected to this work on the vision, or are we going to focus on the vision without their facilitation to inform the strategic planning?
Madam Chair, I think there's an opportunity for us to have their voice and input around the mission, vision, and work.
Even if remotely?
Even if it's done remotely, absolutely. So once we land on a date for the board retreat, certainly a date where I will also look at the calendars from members of the executive cabinet, because I think some of them will be in attendance at that as well. But once we have a date finalized, then I will work with our consultant to make sure they're available.
I don't know if this helps, but looking at my calendar, I think I said a no to the 12th and 13th of July. Since I have work training, I will be here the 12th and the 13th, so I don't know if that makes a difference for July.
I am not available the 13th.
Okay, so let's just keep going through the.
5th and 6th.
No.
Nope.
No. 19th and 20th.
No.
26th and 27th.
Patrick is not available July 27th.
Can we go back to the 19th and 20th? Can anybody, am I the only one who can't do it?
So the 20th, I volunteered at East to help with the BFLs for the registration. But I could probably see what that time is.
I have a family reunion. I could do the 19th, but not the 20th.
Can we go ahead and look at August?
Yep.
Are we amenable to looking at a Sunday afternoon instead of a Saturday? Does it have to be Friday, Saturday?
Are you proposing Friday, Sunday?
Yes.
Of that weekend, I can't do it, but in general,
Okay.
does that change anything?
That
Looking
change?
Not for July, probably.
Okay.
I'm available 26, 28.
I'm not.
Okay.
Patrick is not.
Okay.
2nd, 3rd of August.
Or the 4th.
2nd, 3rd, 4th of August.
Available.
I am.
I am not.
Boo.
Patrick is not.
The 9th, 10th, and 11th.
Yes, for Patrick.
It
That
does work
works
for
for
Patrick?
It does.
It works
Okay.
for me.
It does work for me.
It works for me.
Oh, come on, Jenna. Come on, Kim. Does it work for you?
I mean, ideally 9th and 11th would work for me, better than 10th.
Okay.
We need.
Or maybe morning of the 10th. By afternoon, I have plans already.
Does it work for you?
Dr. Roberts?
The 9th does not work for me.
It's a 10th morning.
I can do 10th, 11th.
So then do we just do it all in one day rather than two?
I think that may be easier at this point. If we're looking for 8 hours, could we do a Sunday for 8 hours? Or a Saturday?
Obviously, Skylar's never done this before. Just joking. Just
We're going to be in December here shortly.
Let's get one more date, just because I think if there are other members of the
So right now, the 10th and 11th
cabinet,
are available for everyone that is sitting at this table and Patrick.
Yes, correct.
but not a full 8 hours on the 10th for me.
The afternoon of the 11th and the
Anytime on the 11th, morning on the 10th.
AM.
you need to find morning. Like to 12, is that? like-
Yeah, 12 or 1.
Okay, got it.
Okay. All right, August 16, 17, 18.
Nope.
Okay, well, that's out.
23, 24, 25.
I do not have those dates for Patrick.
I'm traveling for work.
Do you want us to continue, Madam Chair?
No, I think we have to commit. I mean, we've learned a lot about the scheduling process and about how busy we all are. And so I would like to ask the committee to come back with a recommendation for a 4 to 5 hour block in the fall. You know, just like we need to get some markers on the, you know, so whether
I
it's
think the committee discussed putting 2 retreats on the calendar moving forward, one in the summer months and one in the winter months, so that we have them calendared out, and everyone knows them in advance. So that was what Maria and Skylar and I discussed.
how many
going forward.
days for the summer?
2.
Yeah, 2 days in the summer and at least a day in the winter is what we've discussed.
Yeah. I am going to ask, we are going to need one in the fall. We have a lot of moving pieces in the fall that we need to find some time. So either we can chunk in some work sessions on Tuesdays, which is fine, or we're going to have to find a kind of a Saturday morning or a Sunday to work through some items. So we don't have to get there now. So
I would,
Can we,
we don't have Patrick's schedule.
can we do a session on a Tuesday?
Yeah.
After a meeting, and then complete the rest on one of the weekends that works for everyone, which is August 9th. I think that weekend works for most of us, or all of us. I think everyone for the 9th, I think it works for everyone on the 9th, Friday.
I didn't hear, sorry.
Can we do,
So you're suggesting, Maria, instead of doing the 10th
Friday.
and the 11th, the morning of the 10th, the afternoon of the 11th, you're suggesting one, either the morning of the 10th or the afternoon of the 11th with the addition of a Tuesday evening for 4 hours. Is that what I'm understanding?
we do an evening, and then the rest do it on the weekend? We can do
Okay,
Friday.
So what date are you recommending?
For the
August?
Tuesday.
No, I want to do one full day.
No Tuesdays?
No work session.
She's not recommending changing any time that we're committing. She's recommending changing it from either the Saturday and Sunday to a Tuesday, Saturday, or a Tuesday, Sunday.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if we can commit a day together. It flows better, if that's possible, just relationship building, team building.
I'm not on the committee, but what about the 11th?
It seems like there's consensus with the 11th. Everyone
Yep.
has the time available. Could we do 8 hours on the 11th?
Yes, for Patrick.
Okay, I missed that. Didn't we settle on a date? Did something happen?
We have a weekend right now.
Didn't we have the 20, did I miss that? So it's not the 23rd. Here's the deal, it's fine, the 11th's my birthday, so can you just bring me cake? That's all I ask.
I'll
Let me
bring
exercise and bring me
Was
cake,
I in the
and I
board
will be
meeting on my
fine.
birthday? I think it was.
Yeah,
Yeah, Patrick also said not on the 16th because that's his birthday.
Oh,
thanks, Patrick. Okay, so are we settling in on the 11th? Is that what I'm hearing?
August 11th.
Right. For 8 hours.
are you sure you want to spend 8 hours with us on your birthday?
Well, only if you're nice to me.
We will
Okay.
be.
Yeah.
We promise.
Yeah.
Ms. Rios, will you send a calendar invite to hold
I
that,
thought you
please?
couldn't do that morning. 10th. Oh, okay, got it. That's where I was confused.
Board and who else?
Superintendent and his designees.
Thank you.
Will we have an SOFG coach? Anybody else outside? Okay. Okay, thank you.
Can we agree to 8 to 4 on Sunday? Love it.
8 to 4, and what date for the benefit of my dynamic cabinet members?
The 11th.
Yeah, we'll stay really focused.
August 11th, July 11th.
August 11th from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m.
You should get some.
That's a Sunday.
Seeing heads up, thumbs up, no one's birthday on August 11th. Okay.
We'll have a double cake.
More cakes.
Okay, thank you so much for this.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate it. Let's see. So we just did committee updates. Okay, the second item is F2, Goal 3 update. This is it Goal 3 or Guardrail?
Guardrail 4.
Okay, so on the other agenda item, so we still have F2 Goal 3
Goal 3
update.
update, okay.
Okay, so, but let's do, would you like to, we are going to add in Guardrail 4.
Madam Chair, point of order. If, like, the last 3 meetings, we've had many agenda items changing in the meeting. Can we get the agenda, can we make those changes in advance of the meeting so that we know what's coming and what we can expect?
We can always.
We are,
Like, our agenda as it exists, we've already approved Guardrail 4 under consent agenda, so I'm just
I
going to call a
appreciate
point
that.
of order.
I appreciate your point of order, and we are going to move forward. We have been blessed with 3 wonderful staff from Lincoln, and we want to give them the opportunity to share with us a little bit about the work that they're doing. So, motion denied. What do you want me to say? I heard you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I may just add very quick context as Shelley Bosovich comes to the podium. We heard earlier about just the sense of belonging, and amazing thing is happening in our elementary schools, and this is an opportunity for us to hear some of what is really happening district-wide.
Good evening, Dr. Roberts, Madam Chair, board members. Guardrail 4, as you know, is about safe and welcoming environment. And so the measures that we use for that are the Panorama Student Survey. It's a perception survey. I want to share with you the questions so you'll have some context when Lincoln comes up and talks a little bit. Under the safety questions, there's a group of questions there. How often are people disrespectful to others at your school? How often do students get into physical fights at your school? How likely is it that someone from your school will bully you online? How often do you worry about violence at your school? If a student is bullied at school, how difficult is it for him or her to get help from an adult? And finally, in the safety measures at your school, how unfairly do adults treat students? And then there's another group that are grouped together, and they are the sense of belonging questions. Those questions include, how well do people at your school understand you as a person? How connected do you feel to the adults at your school? How much respect do students in your school show you? How much do you matter to others in this school? And overall, how much do you feel like you belong at your school? Lincoln High School is here to present tonight because they made the most significant gains in both safety and sense of belonging. And you will hear some themes that people talked about earlier about all staff members being in and some intentional efforts. And Lincoln will share you the details of that. It's really exciting what they've done. Thank you.
And thank you for your patience with us as we navigate through an evolving agenda. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you for the invitation to come this evening. We're happy and excited to share with you some of the results. I'm Paul Williamson. I'm the principal at Lincoln High School and just finished up 13 years in that position. And so what a great way to wrap up the years to share a little bit of our data. So as Ms. Bosovich shared, we've done a lot of work this year around the SEL work, and part of that has been safety and sense of belonging. And so what we've been doing is what we want to do over the next 10 minutes is just share with you a few pieces of our data that I'll share with you some of that information, and then I'm going to pass it off to my 2 wonderful colleagues that I'll introduce to you here in a minute, who really are responsible for a lot of the work that we did throughout the year. So with the Panorama surveys, there's the students, as you know, the students take the survey and the staff take the survey. And so this is referencing really what our students and staff responded to this past spring. And one of the biggest gains that we saw was 11 points in our sense of belonging as a whole from our students' survey data, which is great. That's actually 8 points higher than we've ever been at Lincoln High School over the, I don't know what it has been, 5, 6 years since we've been doing the Panorama Two of the questions I want to highlight specifically as far as the data growth is the question that students are asked, how much do other students in your school respect you? And we saw a 12-point increase with our students this year about how they feel others respect them. And then also we grew 9 points in the area of how much do you feel like you belong at Lincoln High School. And so we're excited about those two pieces in this area of sense of belonging with our students. Also in the school climate, our students, we grew 11 points and overall in the area of student and school climate. This was the largest growth that we have seen, that we saw in any of our topics this year from the student survey. And then specifically the two highest rated questions for our students were how often do your teachers seem excited to be teaching you in your classes? And when the students scored us 11 points higher than what they have in the fall or last spring, I think it was. And then the other question is how positive or negative is the energy of the school? And that grew by 10 points as well this year. And again, Joy and Christy here will share with you a little bit what we did to get there. And then school safety with the guardrail. Specifically, we did see an increase overall of 5 points from our students' perspective. They told us, as Shelley mentioned, one of them is physical fights. And so asking the question of how often do students get in physical fights in your school, they responded positively with an increase of 10 points. So that, in other words, that they are seeing that less than they have in the past. And then how often are people disrespectful to others in the school? And that increased in a positive way by 4 points this year. And in regards to our staff, there's just a couple I want to highlight there. Our biggest gain for the staff survey was 5 points overall in the area of educating students. And this was the couple questions that stood out was, how comfortable as a staff member would you be incorporating new material about people from different backgrounds into your curriculum? And we've done a lot of work in that area, and we increased by 12 points over the course of the last year. And then the staff also answered to the question of when a sensitive issue of diversity arises in your class, how easily can you think of strategies to address the situation? And that also increased by 12 points. So a lot of professional learning that we'll mention here in a moment that's gone into that work over several years, to be honest with you. And then the last thing that I want to highlight with staff is another gain that we saw was in our student climate scores and school climate scores. And overall that increased with the whole topic by 4 points. But specifically, how supportive are students in their interactions with each other? Our staff scored that 14 points higher than what it was a year ago. And then how respectful are the relationships between teachers and students? And they also scored that 12 points higher. So as you can see, there's a lot of data points there that are pointing towards the hard work that our teachers, and as you're going to learn here in a minute, that our students have been doing. Some of the bigger steps that we have been doing to get some of these gains with the staff were listening sessions. So I host listening sessions, 4 of them every month with our staff. They're one day. I do it before school, after school, and during both their lunch periods. It's their agenda, and they come with questions. They might come with concerns, looking for clarification. And then over the last few years that we've done it, it's evolved really, especially this year, into problem solving. It's like, here's the concerns, here are the things we're seeing. Let's talk about how we can work as a staff to do that. So I've really appreciated that shift in our listening sessions this year. And then we would turn around, because not all staff would be able to attend, but we would turn around then and share with the entire staff what the topics were, what the questions were, providing the answers. And then we would be committed to following up as we were able to address things, following up with the staff to let them know what we have been doing in order to address the issues or concerns that they had. We've also provided opportunities for our staff and our students to provide feedback throughout the year. So one of the things we've done with our teachers at every staff meeting, we've asked them 3 specific questions around how optimistic are they about the future of Lincoln High School, how positive are the attitudes of their colleagues, and then how positive of a work environment is Lincoln High School. And so we've been doing that every month. Again, we've been seeing increases in that throughout the year. So trying to get feedback from staff and acting on that feedback throughout the year. And then we did a survey with students. We didn't do this until beginning of second semester, but we asked students to rate how safe do they feel in all different aspects, like whether it was in the classroom, in the hallways, on the bus, in the lunchroom, and they identified an area that we responded to as a staff, and we were very transparent with the staff and with the students and the parents. We said, here was the area that they were most concerned about. The safety was actually in the restrooms, and so we responded to that by setting up different supervision schedules for our staff, and what we saw is over the course of the semester, there was, I believe it was a 12% increase in students feeling safe, more safe in the restrooms than they did when we actually started that. So we were excited and showed the students and our staff that we can accomplish things together if we're working together and having two-way communication. And the last thing that I wanted to share with you is the importance of what we can do as a school to empower our students and our staff to reach goals. And what we had a goal this year with, which was engaging all students and staff. It sounds very simple, but it's very complicated. It's very involved. But what we did is we empowered our students and staff, especially on our school leadership team meeting, school leadership team, to develop committees to figure out how to engage students more, how to engage staff more. And that is one of the reasons we believe that we saw the increase in some of our scores. So I want to turn it over to Dr. Lindquist, who is an associate principal at Lincoln, and then Christy Snyder, who is an English teacher and also our student leadership sponsor, as they're going to share with you a few more of the items that we've done on the day-to-day basis in order to get to where we are today.
Congratulations on the data.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us today. I think one of the things that we wanted to share is how did we do all this work? And for one thing, it's not done alone, obviously. When you have 2,400 students and 140 to 160 staff members are in the building on every day, it takes a lot of work, consistent daily work, and coming back to the table when things aren't working well and making immediate shifts and adjustments. What I think is really important is when we heard the young students from Stowe and Walnut Street earlier today. And it reminded me of something that I share with teams all the time. Is one of my favorite activists, Brittany Packnett. I heard her speak one time and she said, "You can't teach children that you don't love. They won't learn from you." And I think that when we talk about that with our staff and we really talk, when I heard the joy of the children that spoke today and the joy from the staff, that's what we're trying to evoke in our buildings. And when we're able to accomplish that, there's just no end to what we can do. And so that is really part of the work that we've really done. I'm one of the associate principals, but I support the SEL team. And Christy and another counselor, they are the SEL champions. And so we work with our whole SEL team. Over the past few years, we set the stage for, I think, what has occurred this year in a lot of professional development and constant focus with social emotional learning. And so I'm going to ask Christy just to share a little bit about the social emotional learning that we did and as far as professional development, because we really believed to get where we need to be, we have to ensure that we have a safe space for the adults in the building first, and that they also understand what it is we're teaching our students. So we did start in this journey with the adults before then we went tier 1 with students.
Good evening. As Mr. Williamson said, I'm an English teacher, but throughout my career, I have always said I teach students through, so I am very passionate about SEL learning and trauma-informed and trauma-sensitive practices. So the 2022 and the 2023 school year, we gave professional developments with every school professional development day that every teacher was required to attend. So our teachers received an hour's worth of trauma-informed, focused training from the brain science to strategies to understanding the importance of relationships. And that school year, we started small, and we just started asking teachers to be outside of their classrooms. Something as simple as greeting your students every day when they walk in your classroom door is an important component of our students to feel like they belong in our spaces. This year, we bumped it up. We offered both the trauma-informed practices training to our new teachers, to DMPS, and to our first-year teachers. And then we extended it for our veteran teachers, our returning teachers, and we developed a 102 practice where we started focusing on more specific students and communities of students everywhere, from our students that are experiencing homelessness to our students in the LGBT community, and how trauma and childhood ACEs affect them and how that affects their behavior and their ability to learn in the classroom. So Mr. Williamson really giving us a blank slate and letting us just talk about our passions and why this is so important for our students is one of the reasons why we are so successful at Lincoln. And having Joy Linquist, who is also a huge passion for SEL learning, to just dive in this together has really been the reason why we have grown. So putting students first, putting relationships first. This second year, we started incorporating more of the students. I would like to believe that our students have always felt this way with the Panorama data. They just really didn't understand the Panorama survey itself. So this year, as a staff, we dug into the CASEL competencies, and every month we had a focus from self-efficacy to personal relationships, all the way through the gamut and all the way into our transformative SEL in the second semester. With students having a better SEL vocabulary, understanding what the word self-efficacy even means, for them to be able to then utilize and answer a question on a survey is really what took our numbers and just exploded them. Another thing, Panorama survey uses that middle number. It's actually a negative. So when you're looking at these arrows that are red and green, up and down, and how many of you have teenagers? They're looking at these surveys going middle, 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 middle. And that was actually a negative effect on our numbers. And we knew this is not how Lincoln students feel. So being more intentional with our vocabulary, being more intentional with telling the students, like, hey, you really need to decide, are you really neutral about this, or do you have a passion? Do you have an understanding? Do you want Lincoln to be the place that you're like, I have Southside pride and I go to this school? Well, then express it. Say, no, the teachers, this is where you're lacking, or no, this is where we're doing really good. But if you just stay on that fence and you don't take a side, you're not helping us be better teachers, be a better school. So we were very intentional before the SEL Panorama data to talk about answering questions, talking about the vocabulary, talking about how answers are scored. And sometimes you do feel meh when you answer a question, but not all of them. Take a side, say it with your chest. And as you can see, when they really started to value the survey and how it can make us better, our numbers really reflect the Southside pride that our students have in our building. So thank you as a board that putting SEL as an importance in our district, and thank you to my administration for letting me run with my passions.
I think it's also important for you to know that we did implement Tier 1 instruction with our students this year. So we did that background work with the adults for a few years. And then this year, once a month, we had a focus. They were either the 5 CASEL competencies or the 5 transformative constructs. We took one topic each month. That was the focus for the entire school. Our SEL team would create the lessons. We modeled them in staff meetings every month. month. We did pre and post tests. We shared the data back with our staff. We made adjustments as needed. And so we did use our SEL playbook. We used the district work that was created as well. And we did do that Tier 1 instruction with our students. We are certainly looking forward to Wayfinder and having a really intentional focus across the district next year. And I just can't imagine what the numbers might look like in the future. And then more importantly, when we get back to the topics earlier today, when the conditions are right, and students feel safe and they belong and staff feel safe and they belong, that's when we're going to also get all of those academic targets that we're looking for as a district. So I will hand it back over for you to close us out. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so the last item, and it's very short, is just looking forward and how we're going to do it, right? Because we hear from teachers all the time, and it's true, 42 minutes in a class to get through all the curriculum is exceptionally difficult. And now here we are with more curriculum, right, with the SEL curriculum. And so we engaged our staff at the end of the school year, provided some options, and allowed them opportunities to come up with other options. And so we're going to implement our SEL curriculum through an advisory type model. And so what our staff decided is they would rather throughout the year designate advisory days. And so we will have days where we rotate throughout the year where we might miss period 1 during this week and actually have an advisory to develop relationships with kids and to teach the Wayfinder SEL curriculum. And then the next week we do it, it'd be period 2 and so on. So we're going to do this constant rotation. And so want to credit our staff for being willing to be flexible, because if you're at the high school level and you teach 6 classes and they're same, now they're not always going to be in the same spot on the same day. And so they understand the importance and support this work and seeing the impact it has. So I want to credit them for embracing this idea, and we hope to be able to share data with you in the future that shows yet even more improvement because of some other ways that we were able to address it. So thanks again for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Just one question. Principal Williamson, what is one thing you would want the board to know as you think about how hard this work is? What's the one thing you'd want to tell us? You can say anything you want.
Well, I was thinking when they were talking, the smartest thing I've done is get out of the way, and I feel like I should again.
That's good.
I don't know. I think the hardest part of the work is, it was said earlier, a little bit with buy-in, that's a challenge, right? Because as educators, we're not just passionate about our kids, but we're passionate about our content. And so we're having to give up time for that. I think it's the other thing that to realize is that, we have, at Lincoln High School, we have 600 new students every year, right? And so 25% of the population, just like every other high school. And so I think that's a big challenge, is because how do you continue to grow and improve on things with the other 1,800 students, why we still have the 600 new students? And I think this advisory concept is going to allow us to bring our new students on board and grow the others. So I think that's a big challenge.
Great, thank you.
Did you guys, yeah.
I would say that, and this relates also to questions that the board had is earlier with academic growth. Why is it working in some buildings and not in others? Why is our panorama data different than others? The research would say, that if you have an efficacious staff, so if adults know what to do and they feel that they can be successful, and then we have students that have that self-efficacy, they know what is expected of them and they know that they can do it, that is really, I think, the mindset that we need to work on as a full district in every building, that every single staff member understands their role, can take care of their role and be confident that they're making a difference and that they know how to do it. That confidence level and understanding is, I think, sometimes a barrier to the success, but that is work that we have focused on to try to remove that barrier. By going with adult learning first, so that they can feel confident, and that's now they're wanting more. They're wanting more SEL because they're seeing that our students feel more safe. They feel like they belong, and they feel like they can do the hard work that we're asking them to do. So.
Thank you so much.
One last thing, as a Lincoln High grad, I just want to say thanks for bringing the Southside Pride tonight. It felt really good to hear. So thank you. Kudos.
Thank you. appreciate our board members allowing us to put that in. Underneath other, the second item is F2, Goal 3 update.
Yes.
And I think, Dr. Roberts, do you just want to provide a high level where we are on that, just acknowledging?
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, so since the board has provided us with some guidance and directive, the last 30 days, we've actually engaged in a number of activities. One, we've had site visits through the Reimagining Education Committee, right, as we were thinking about, again, our future ready goal. Those site visits included a variety of stakeholders led by our associate, Matt Smith, Dave Berger, and Amanda Miller. We've identified some replicable practices that we want to make sure we are incorporating into our Goal 3 narrative. We've convened a much larger work group that has continuously looked at what needs to be put in place for us to truly come to the board with a solid recommendation around not only the goal and the narrative about the goal and the language, but how are we going to monitor during this year zero? And then we've established a cadence for future meetings of this larger group. The focus for the next 30 days with an end time actually of the July 9 board meeting is for us to develop a long-term work plan with timeline and updates for the board around what we're going to look at for school year 24-25. So we'll bring that to you on July 9th.
Great. And so, board members, just as a reminder, it was year zero, and so we talked about setting milestones. So there is some understanding and accountability to progress to goal, but it is not going to look like a typical interim measure with quantitative data. And so that will be finalized at the first meeting in July.
That is correct. That's correct.
Great. Now we're going to turn it over to items of privilege. So I would like board members to share anything that they would like to share at this point.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just like to speak about an important day in our nation's history, Juneteenth, also known as Freedom Day or Emancipation Day. It's observed on June 19th each year. It marks the anniversary of the moment in 1865 when enslaved African Americans in Galveston, Texas were informed of their freedom 2.5 years after President Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation. As a school district committed to fostering an inclusive and equitable environment, it is essential that we recognize and celebrate Juneteenth. This day not only commemorates the end of slavery in the United States, but also serves as a reminder of ongoing struggle for civil rights and social justice. I encourage our entire community to participate in Juneteenth events and to engage in conversations about the importance of this day. By doing so, we can collectively foster a deeper understanding and appreciation of our diverse histories and experiences. Juneteenth reminds us of the work that remains in our pursuit of equity and justice. As a district, we are committed to addressing disparities and creating an environment where every student has the opportunity to succeed. This includes continuous efforts to implement equitable policies, support marginalized communities, and ensure that our schools are places where all students feel valued and respected. In closing, Juneteenth is not just a day to remember the past, but a call to action for the present and future. Let us honor this day by reaffirming our commitment, my commitment, to educational equity and justice for all.
Thank you. Other board members? So I am going to read just a quick excerpt from Dr. Roberts' review, his evaluation. As some of you know, it was on the board agenda that the board approved a 3-year contract, Dr. Roberts. And I just thought it'd be good to read a few highlights collectively of what we heard from the board. Dr. Roberts was brought on with a board mandate for swift, multifaceted change to ensure DMPS is positioned for the next 5 to 10 years of massive financial and pedagogical disruption. In year one, Dr. Roberts sought to strengthen relationships in our schools and community. He placed an emphasis on modeling high standards of teaching and learning and set higher expectations for all staff. Dr. Roberts worked to lead stakeholders to develop and implement culturally responsive policies that acknowledge the diverse backgrounds and identities of our students and to harness the strengths while also identifying the barriers faced in leading such a diverse district. Dr. Roberts is a charismatic leader who has successfully cracked open the door for staff and community, some of whom had almost given up on our school district. By the end of calendar year 2024, DMPS will be in a position to share a bold new vision, calendar year 2024, a bold new vision, a strategic plan, clear goals, and a reimagined DMPS that will put us on a trajectory to be the district of choice. It is an exciting time for DMPS. For FY25, the board reiterated to Dr. Roberts the mandate for swift, multifaceted change and shared their willingness to invest in the people and resources needed to ensure that Dr. Roberts has what he needs to accomplish the work. For FY25, the board has developed a robust evaluation instrument that clearly articulates the board goals and expectations and is excited to work in partnership with Dr. Roberts to lead DMPS into the future. Thank you, Dr. Roberts. You made it a year. Thank you for your hard work and efforts for DMPS in year one. On behalf of the board, we are grateful. Thank you.
Another round of applause.
May I respond, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Certainly with some brevity, but certainly with a spirit of gratitude. Gratitude that you have seen the work that my teammates and I have done, because this is certainly not a solo journey, but you have exercised a level of confidence by extending my tenure here with these amazing group of leaders for an additional 3 years. And I believe that in 3 years, we are going to make a lot of movement and get a lot of tremendous and positive traction in the work that we have committed to and set out to do for the Des Moines Public Schools and the Des Moines community. Often we describe and discuss how important our work is because our students and parents deserve it. They deserve to continuously be nurtured and inspired by how we show up each and every day. And I have to share with you, as we continue to think about the superintendency and the shortness or tumultuous nature of our tenure, to have a board who sees and values your work, but also a board that champions the success that they expect of you and from you, is heartwarming, it's encouraging, and it's certainly inspiring. And indulge me, if I may, as I think about the timing of this contract extension and the way that I'm poised to be in this position. I don't ever take for granted that when history was made, when the board selected me as the first Black superintendent, first superintendent of color to lead Des Moines' largest school system, I realized that more than just my ability and capacity, in my mind, this was a divine calling. And even as I sit here and today and listening to Board Member Martorano talk about our commitment to equity and dismantling systems and institutions of racism and marginalization, I also realized that the freedom that was promised to Blacks in 1865 has not necessarily been delivered upon even in 2024. And each day that I have my feet hit the ground and I set out to lead a system of about 31,000 students, I certainly allow my biases to influence my decisions along recognizing and uplifting and elevating the experiences of marginalized students. And earlier tonight, you all saw me in a place of vulnerability and emotion when I listened to 3 Black boys, Faith, Giovanni, and Journey, show us what the promise is when we focus on Black boys and Black males. My heart is full. I'm thankful to the board, and my commitment is to continue to partner with this amazing team of adults and teachers and this community that has embraced me to make sure that we deliver an excellence to the Moore Public Schools. Thank you, Madam Chair and Board.
And with that, our meeting is adjourned at 7:54. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for leading tonight.